the turning point in our lives. This is an article by Jeffrey Tucker. I actually wrote this as the foreword to a book for somebody, put it out as an article. And he's talking about what happened 6 years ago, the lockdown. I would say this is the fourth turning that is going to be the one that happens during our lifetime. And I guess when you look at this, I was laughing about it when I saw this. I told Garen, I said, the 6 years ago when Trump did that COVID MacGuffin, basically what they did was they defenestrated the Bill of Rights, threw it right out of the Overton window. Isn't that funny that we have in the English language a word for throwing things and people out of windows, defenestration, right? It's kind of like the Germans have their word Schadenfreude, right? Dark joy in somebody else's troubles. Well, it is interesting to see that. And we got Tony ready to join us at this point in time. So we're going to go to Tony. And certainly the parallels are there that we see both with what happened 6 years ago and even greater parallels, I think, to what happened 53 years ago and the knock-ons to that. So joining us now is Tony Arterburn. Thank you for joining us, Tony. And because Tony has Wise Wolf Gold, and he's kindly set up davidknight.gold, and that'll take you to Tony's website where you can buy gold and silver. You can do one-time purchases. You can use it to set up metals into your IRA as a part of your IRA or all of your IRA, whatever. And you can also use Wolfpack to buy regular recurring amounts of gold and silver, physical gold and silver that you keep. It's not on a blockchain. It's not in some vault supposedly in Shanghai, but it's something that you actually physically keep. And it's a great way to save, especially if you want to try to save in something that is not a declining asset. So thank you for joining us, Tony. Great to have you.
It's great to be back, David. Last week I was actually about 2.5 hours north of London.
Oh, wow.
Visiting with David Icke.
Wow.
And
cool.
I sat down with David Icke for about 2.5 hours. And I told him, I said, it's fortuitous. 23 years ago to the day we started the Iraq War, and I'm sitting down to talk to you. And now we're doing part 4 or 5 of the extension, whatever that war is. Now we're doing that again. And so
did you have an interview with him? Did you post that up on your account?
I haven't posted it yet.
Oh.
I had the whole iconic crew. I sat down with Gareth Icke, his son, and also Richard Willett, who's the documentarian.
Mm-hmm.
All very smart, wonderful people. I've talked to him for years, and I finally got an invite over, so I took it.
Oh, that should be very interesting. Yeah. I'm on the same page with David Icke about pretty much everything except for the religious aspect of it. We have a big disagreement as to why, he looks at, I look at these supernatural things with UFOs and so forth, and I say, what they're doing is relabeling spiritual entities as that. And he takes the opposite view. He says, well, the UFOs are real, not the Bible. And you're basically renaming the UFO, alien, extraterrestrials, you're renaming them as angels and demons. And so we have a difference of opinion on that, but that's about the only place where I see that we have a difference of opinion. But that's on something that's pretty fundamental, I think, for me anyway.
Yeah, well, it's very similar for me as well. I would think we have those theological differences, spiritual differences, whatever you want to call it. But he is spot on about the genesis of the cult that creates these wars and our current economic reality.
That's right. Yeah. And he has stayed the course too. He hasn't been all over the place. He isn't somebody that he's on Trump's team, then he's off Trump's team, then he's back on Trump's team like Alex Jones. And it drives him crazy to see Alex Jones doing that. And he's publicly criticized Alex Jones, and he doesn't get all the stuff thrown at him. I criticize Alex for the same thing, but, it's sour grapes for you. And it's like, okay, well, then listen to David Icke if you don't want to listen to me, because he never worked for Alex.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's he's not held anything back. We talked about that, the mainstream alternative media and his views on that. And it's been interesting to talk to all these different figures in alternative media throughout my career. And certainly one of my great privileges is talking to you every week. And
thank you.
We get to narrate the apocalypse together, which has been
got a front row seat, don't we? Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that iconic character in Clockwork Orange where they strap the guy down. They're doing the psyop on him or whatever, and they got him strapped down. They got his eyelids propped open and making him watch this violence while they nauseate him to try to psychologically condition him to where he can't even think about committing violence. But I feel like I'm forced to watch this. We got something propping my eyelids up and facing the screen all the time. And so we're looking at this, and a lot of people are scratching their heads and saying, we had a pretty bad week on gold last week in terms of the price in dollars, and it dropped. And I'm looking at this, and I go back and look at what happened in the 1970s. All this stuff takes a while to roll out, number one. This is my take on it. I want to get your take on it. My take is that it takes Wall Street a while to react to reality. And they're constantly distracted by things that are fantasies. You see them all run off. That's how we get our bubbles and that type of thing. So the reality takes a while to set in for Wall Street. But I think there's another factor as well. And I think these Gulf states, which have quite a bit of gold, quite frankly, they don't have any income. And they're looking at what's coming. And they've seen a pretty big run up in gold. It's like, we better get rid of this stuff right now because we're going to need to have some cash to get us through this. And their whole infrastructure is being destroyed because their whole infrastructure is based on the sale of oil. And so even if they don't blow up the oil fields and the tankers and the refineries and the ports and all the rest of the stuff, which is really on the table, Trump put it on the table this weekend. Even if that doesn't happen, they are still looking at a long period of time without any income. And so I think they're cashing out on some of the gold that they've had a pretty good rise on. What do you think is happening?
Yeah, they would have to. And I think we forget gold is broke 5,000 and beyond. And that's not normal. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a succession of failures economically, politically, the entire geopolitical spectrum breaking apart is the reason that we reach $5,000 plus gold in 2026 and not 2036. Mm-hmm. This is coming faster than anybody ever. I mean, there's a lot of gold bugs that have crazy price predictions over the years, but I mean, I follow this every day. I didn't predict $5,000 gold in 2025. I didn't think it was going to happen, but we're here. And we had the worst week in gold since the early 1980s. There's like you said, I think there's a lot of capital being raised right now for infrastructure and other things from some of these governments.
But it's still about twice what it was a year ago, right?
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. Is like, well, gold failed again. It didn't hold up as a geopolitical hedge or a risk against geopolitical risk. And I don't see it that way. I think that it's certainly fundamentally all of those things are still there. They're going to continue to drive the price of gold up against the dollar, and I do laugh when I see things like people wondering, is it going to go up? Is silver going to go up? Well, yeah, I mean, against the dollar, sure. It's on long enough timeline. There was an article out on Forbes. Did you see this, David, where the U.S. Treasury declared the United States insolvent?
No, I didn't see that.
Officially, yes, there's their own numbers, and it's.
Are you kidding me? Are they getting close to telling the truth on something?
I think they accidentally let it slip. Yeah, it's on Forbes. It's the headline is, the Treasury just declared the U.S. insolvent, and the media missed it.
Wow.
This is Fortune magazine.
Wow. Next thing they'll be telling us they did 9/11, as if we didn't know already. Yeah.
Yeah, the fundamentals are all there. I mean, the risks geopolitically, and we see, if you wanted to reverse engineer how to create an energy crisis, this is how you would do it. Yeah. Like what we're doing right now is going to create an economic crisis, an energy crisis, possibly not just a recession, but a depression. If you look at how fragile the system is, 20% or more of the world's oil output going through the Strait of Hormuz, and what are we even doing right now? It makes, of course, you're right too. The markets do respond irrationally, like they'll and a lot of the insider trading that's going on right now, and we know that's a fact. Billions are being made from their connections to whatever decisions or tweets or posts or truths or whatever are going to go out, and they've moved billions that way, just signaling that there's going to be a peace plan. Or they have something resolved. No, they don't.
Yeah.
And the Iranians are digging in. all they have to do is not lose at this point.
Oh yeah,
And
I mean we're evacuating bases over there. You ever seen a situation where they tell everybody, "All right, leave the base and go get rooms in hotels because they're onto us, and we can't defend the base anymore." That's incredibly crazy. And in the face of all that, they're talking about doing an amphibious attack on an island. Oh, come on!
I would not want to be a part of that operation. Not with Pete Hegseth as your Secretary of War now. They've reclaimed that mantle.
The high school coach, the high school football coach. I wouldn't even want him as a high school football coach, but no. Certainly would not want to have him in a life and death situation.
Not anywhere near any organization I'd want to ever be a part of.
Well, I saw one analyst, Tony, said people are saying, "What's going on with gold?" And she said, "Well, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's creating liquidity in a crisis for the people who own it." And that's precisely what's happening, I think. You got a lot of people who, stock market has not really reacted the reality of what's going on has not really hit the stock market. They jump on these issues when Trump says, "All right, another 5 days or whatever." It's like, come on, that's nothing's going to come of that. But they react to it as if that is something that is real and solid. And so it takes the stock market a while to factor in what is really going to be real. But there's already been, some issues where people may be worried about their margin calls. But again, as I said, I think the Gulf states are looking at this. You got a lot of countries who have a lot of money and they're looking for liquidity, and they've got some really tough times that are coming up. And then you've got a class of investors, retail investors, who are jumping onto gold because they thought it was, the next fast moving thing. So they're going to jump off and jump onto oil, for example, right? Those types of investors are going to jump off and get on the oil train for a little while. The people who are going to try to, the day traders and the timers and that type of thing are going to do that. So the fundamentals are still where they were, except that they're even stronger. The things that were driving gold in the past are even stronger. The bankruptcy of the United States and the debt and all the rest of this stuff, it's going to make things, and inflation. We know there's going to be rapid price inflation on a lot of different things because of this. We've already seen it. It's not a theory. It kind of flummoxed them. We were in uncharted territory in the 1970s because the Keynesians didn't really think that kind of thing could happen because their economic model was flawed. But the reality is that it does happen, and we've already seen it once. And it's amazing to me that people aren't seeing the parallels to the early 1970s.
Well, even the late 70s, there was a lot of intervention, and you saw the price of silver and gold, gold at 800 plus an ounce by late 79, early 1980. Silver, the 52.50 mark that it hit in 1980 was an all-time high until last year, is 45 years. There was government intervention, David, and as you know, as a matter of fact, if you look at some of the headlines, even the government of Japan is saying that they're going to look at the possibility of intervening in oil futures. So there's a clear signal. The United States has done that too, and they may be doing some of it with gold. I mean, the higher and faster that gold rises, the more attention gets paid to things like the dollar and the currency stability and everything else. And I think that you're right. Entities have used gold right now as liquidity. That's what it's for. I find these price breaks as an opportunity.
Yeah,
I saw
that's right.
when it pulled back, that's the first thing I picked up the phone and said, we got to order some gold grams, some of the 1 gram bars. I ordered 400 of them.
That's right.
When I saw that it pulled back, because we need them and need supply as long as there's a price pullback and still supply, I'm going to make that order. So I think it's just a good opportunity for people to still get physical product in the face of everything that's going on, because you're right, the markets are irrational and everything's going to correct. We've been down this road before. I mean, just before 2024 going into 25, you and I had many conversations about the perceived, economic boon that was going to happen to crypto, and it never came. The Bitcoin went to 100,000 and plus, and then just nothing happened. There was no crypto boom. And the same thing, the opposite with gold. I mean, gold and silver started selling off. Well, we don't have to be, get into these metals. these barbarous relics. There's going to be, stock market rally and all the rest. That stuff never came either.
Mm-hmm.
And so it reversed, and gold started doing its thing based off of all the volatility that Trump's put us through.
That's right.
This chaos. It's
That's
all
right.
responding. Remember the tariffs, all that was happening, the black swan event, as I called it, with the big vaults,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing whether or not they're going to be tariffed if they move products. So they started clearing out, and that set off a chain reaction of the paper market.
The chaos that he creates is just amazing. As I said, when we talk about taco, Trump always chickens out. I said, it should be Trump is always capricious and odious in terms of what he does. Like you point out, the tariffs creating all kinds of problems with physical gold and silver. People are not sure what's going to happen. Is there going to be a big tax if we move this type of thing? And so it is kind of interesting, because we always said Trump is really good for gold and silver. Why? Because he's really bad for the economy. And when you look at what he fundamentally does, he will even make it even better, because he gives people these happy stories like, we're going to go into crypto, and we're going to do a Bitcoin reserve, and everybody jumps over all the people who are doing kind of day trading, I call it, although it's maybe a little bit more than day trading, but they're trying to time the market, right? So they all jump into crypto and out of gold and silver, and create a buying opportunity for us right after he was elected. I see this as the same thing again. It's created a big buying opportunity for people. There's an old expression that bulls make money, bears make money, but pigs go broke.
That's right.
And those are the people who are trying to time the market. That's why I like what you do with the Wise Wolf, the Wolf Pack, and people being able to buy it gradually and average the price out over a period of time, because we know what the long-term fundamentals are here. There's no question about where this is all going in the long term. There is a question in terms of what's immediately going to happen to the price this afternoon, that type of thing. So you want to average this out over a period of time.
Yeah, there's a variation on that saying. My dad taught me, and I think I was probably 8 or 9 years old. He taught me about it. He said, pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered. It's one of my favorites. It's just it's a lesson on greed. As a matter of fact, you talk about dollar cost averaging, and for Wolfpack, that's what we do. You can select a $50 package, and so you just press 50, and that's what debits your card every month. And then when you get your invoice, it's based off whatever time that you're in. So if it's 50, 250, or 500, whatever it is, and we do blanket invoices for each tier. So I'll be on the phone with Yeka. She does all of my invoices. She'll look at the inventory that we have, and she'll build it based off the prices. And a lot of times, David, and I was bragging on my crew a little bit, but a lot of times, even if the prices go up, I'll keep the invoices the same. I don't just go up just for the sake of going up, because I'm like, we already made money. It's fine. And, the customer can save a little bit. So even on those, we try to pass on as much savings as we can. And then it's not about my company. It's just, I think a lot of companies out there, you look at Walmart, they're about to talk about Weimar style pricing. They're going to have electronic price tags on the shelves that can be changed in real time.
Wow. Yeah.
Did you see that story?
I didn't see that story, but that's
just come out.
They're tooling up for hyperinflation. That's what they're doing. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Well, we look at this article from Morningstar, how the Iranian war may lead to the last days of the petrodollar. And we've been talking about this for a long time, going back to the damage that was done with Biden as they weaponized this system that they built, 53 years ago. And now it's looking even worse. What they're saying is that, of course, the buying and selling of the world's energy was priced in petrodollars. Part of that equation was that we would provide security, meaning, our military, as well as the weapons that we would sell to people like Saudi Arabia and that type of thing. But it was going to be a Pax Americana. We're going to have a peace and trade, and we were going to provide that. And in exchange for that, Saudi Arabia would buy our treasury bills and save their money in dollars and price everything in dollars. Now this is all falling apart. People are realizing that not only are we not interested in providing peace and prosperity, we want to help Israel acquire land, which is what their ambition is. And so it doesn't really matter if that's war And if it's poverty, we're going to go along that path. And so they're looking at this and rethinking the relationship. Plus, we are not a net customer of theirs anymore. We are a net exporter of all these things. And used to be the largest consumer. Now China is the largest consumer because China is the largest producer. We used to consume more because we produced more domestically. But so it's not necessarily great that we are a net exporter. It really means that we're doing a lot less manufacturing here. But what do you think about this? Is this the last few days of the petrodollar? Is this really going to accelerate it that much?
Oh, I do think it's the last days of the petrodollar. I'm surprised it lasted as long as it has. We didn't even fight for a renewal, even though it wasn't an official agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a memo, or it's an understanding that happened in 1974 that set up through Kissinger and his agents and what he worked for, which, there was trying to stabilize the fiat dollar. We went off the gold standard in 71, so that was a stabilizing move. A lot of things happened in 73, 74, as a matter of fact, David. That's when the United States also got IRAs and 401ks.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because there was so much inflation happening underneath the surface. They knew that eventually it would show up and people would be livid. So you have to distract them a bit. We also ran our last trade surplus in 1973 going into 74. So we had the petrodollar for the agreement, technically for 50 years, but we did nothing to renew that. I mean, this was used heavily by Reagan in the height of the Cold War in the 1980s to bankrupt, well, at least supposedly, to bankrupt the Soviet Union. Was this massive output of oil because the Saudis were willing to do it, and we would buy and we would provide security and all the stuff. But who would trust us now?
I know.
Look at the Iranians. Even they're like, we're not talking to your negotiators. We've been talking to them. You guys used us to get your aircraft carriers and put your weaponry in place for a strike you already decided you were going to do anyway.
That's right.
So there is and look at what we did to the Afghans. I mean, just leaving the infrastructure there for their tyrants to take over and use all the weaponry, the money, the resources, and just left it there. And all the people that had helped us trying to hang on to those aircraft. You ever seen something so sad?
Well, they betrayed the Kurds as well. But when you look at the very beginning of this, the fact that you had Oman and I forget who the guy was that was, the Omani official that was there, but he heard that we were going to do the attack. And so he quickly flew to Washington and say, wait a minute, they've put a lot of stuff on the table here. They're serious about this. And he realized that the U.S. wasn't serious about it, that we were engaged in treachery and perfidy. And you've had people, there was a UAE billionaire that they did an article about. He was furious with this stuff. He said, who gave you the right to destroy our countries? You didn't talk to any of us about this. You did this stupid move. And you didn't even involve us in it, or who gave you the right to do that? And so there's a lot of justly earned contempt from all these Gulf states for the United States in general, but especially for Trump in particular.
Yeah, I have a really good friend I grew up with who's an executive in an oil company, and he travels all over the world. He's a really smart guy. And he was supposed to be on a plane, the day of that's like February 28th. He was headed to the airport. So he had to turn around. He was supposed to go over to the UAE, and then he was going to be in Saudi for some time and talk to Aramco. All these, like, he's a mover and shaker. Mm-hmm. He's like, you could go a week ago, you could go and have a conversation and pretty much go anywhere you wanted in the Middle East as an American. He's like, not anymore. You've just reset that all the way back. At least to post 9/11 tension. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to get any better because we have no plan.
That's right.
Clearly we have no plan. And, I think the plan is to not have a plan.
You should trust the plan, though, Tony.
You should trust it.
Trust is the plan. They want you to trust them regardless of anything. And, we can't tell you, as War Pete has said over and over again, if I had a plan, I wouldn't tell you. Wouldn't tell you, right? So this is where we are.
This is going to end badly. I mean, you can run a bunch of scenarios. The people that'll be hurt the most is us. It'll be the American people. and then everybody else in the world. He'll start with the actual citizens, but the power structure is also going to get their comeuppance eventually. This is not going to bode well. This, I think, is the high water mark of whatever the Trump presidency was as far as power and being able to project it. I think we're looking at a lot of political chaos here towards the end of the year, and these prices aren't going away, David.
Well, the other part of this is that Iran is trying to help to establish the Chinese yuan as a petro yuan. I mean, they're even saying, we'll let people pass. We're going to set up the Strait of Hormuz now as a toll road, right? And we're going to have you pay the toll in Chinese currency. So, I mean, that is a direct challenge to the American petrodollar. They understand exactly what they're doing in terms of economic warfare, don't they? Makes you wonder about the other stuff, which looks like they know what they're doing with the other warfare as well, but they certainly know what they're doing in terms of asymmetric economic warfare, don't they?
Well, sure. And even if it's the perception that you start trading energy in yuan, even if there's no mandate, even if there's no agreement, there's no summit, if it just starts happening, that's a phenomenon of human nature. I think the dollar is clearly on its way out. We're not making moves to reignite that. There's some speculation that the stable coin is the new off ramp for the dollar, that the dollar will be reignited and reinvigorated with stablecoin blockchain technology. I'm a skeptic if you can pull that off, because we're clearly not doing any things in the real world to bolster the dollar, and we're losing that psychological war. I mean, if it's the dollar decline, it's really rapid, David. Actually, if you look at statistics, in 2022, the dollar was about 57% usage in global financial transactions, and I believe today, 4 years later, we are in the low 40s and declining, possibly in the high 30s at this point for dollar usage around the world, because so many countries have dumped their dollar holdings, and gold surpassed the dollar as the world's most held reserve asset.
Yeah,
in about 2 months ago.
Well, I was going back and looking at the prices of things. I really, when I did It's a Wonderful Lie, talking about the creation of the Federal Reserve on its 100th anniversary, and the prices that were being talked about in the 1940s, right after World War II, when they did the movie It's a Wonderful Life, and the salaries that were being talked about, the prices of houses that were being talked about were laughable. And yet I go back and I look at the prices of houses and cars and what the minimum wage was and all the rest of the stuff in the 1970s. It's laughable as well. When the OPEC oil embargo started, oil was $3 a barrel. And it quadrupled to $12 a barrel. And so I look it up and it's like, okay, so what is $12 a barrel in today's 2026 dollars? Well, that's $88. So that's even worse. So the inflation has hit us even worse. But the other thing that is there is that if you look at it, that's a little bit more expensive than what the typical price was before Trump kicked off this insanity. And so the reality is that they quadrupled the price and they kept it there. And then we added Federal Reserve inflation as well on top of that. I expect all of that to happen with this as well. I think it's going to be a ratcheting effect. We're going to have inflation, and it's going to jump up the real price of oil by several multiples, and then it's going to stay there. It's going to change everything.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a reckoning. We've been waiting for the total price revaluation across the board. I think this is the trigger of that event. You saw it through COVID and the price structuring, what happened to the supply chain. Real inflation gets built in over time. But I think that's only the beginning. This really, I think, is the trigger event, and because of the repricing of energy, like you just said, and in real terms of how expensive it actually is based off of the real money supply and the purchasing power of the dollar. That is what's next. We could see, again, it's going to price everything into that.
Yes.
Especially if oil goes to $150, $200 a barrel, which there's no plan to put more oil on the market. I mean, especially you can't drill that fast. You can't get, supply that fast. So even if you started today, it's going to take a long time. It could be years before you could get new supply and a significant amount of supply on the market. So,
Well, we saw that when Trump backlogged everything with his initial lockdown. You had all these backlogs of tankers with all kinds of merchandise in LA and other ports. They couldn't, it was difficult to get the stuff offloaded. So that's bad enough when you just shut it down, and you can't do it just like they did with the embargo of OPEC. But this is different because once they start shutting down production, once the Iranians start blowing up some of these facilities, now it's going to take a long time to get these things started. Permanent damage, a lot of expense, a lot of time to even start producing it, even if you were to clear up the transportation supply chain monkey wrenches that have been thrown in. And so it's going to be very long lasting. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't worry, they raised the draft age to 42, so you may not have to be unemployed out there after all, folks. You can go fight a war for Israel.
I'm safe. They don't want to draft anybody that remembers Vietnam and the oil embargo, so I guess I'm safe.
But I'm barely safe. I don't think I'll be returning to active duty for this war.
Starting to look like Ukraine, isn't it? Is he breathing? Take him. Let's go.
Could get bad.
Yeah. I
hope not. I hope I'm wrong about all this stuff, but it certainly feels like there's more to this. And like a guy, I heard a show the other day. The guy said, "Yeah, if you want to reverse engineer an energy crisis, this is it."
Yeah.
And I thought that's really true. If you're reverse engineering it and you want to put together an energy crisis, so is that what the whole point was? Was just to reprice in, like you mentioned, the $12 a barrel from after we went off the gold standard, and then looking at in today's dollars, 88. Maybe they just need to reprice everything. Maybe it's living had gotten a little too easy for us plebes. Here
well, it helps them to monetize the debt, doesn't it? We have massive hyperinflation. Yeah, I think we'll have to talk about this as being the Trump oil embargo, TOE. Toe the line as he puts his heel on our throat, and kicks us in the face forever. That's he's already focusing on, they're looking at their surveillance state, paving the way for artificial intelligence, get all the regulations out of the way. We're going to control this from Washington, which means that they're not going to control it at all, which means that they're going to use it for their own purposes of a police state surveillance. And at the same time, you got the Trump administration. One of the other U-turns that Trump has done is on the FISA Section 702, which they said gave them the ability to do surveillance on Americans without a search warrant. Trump is against that. In 2024, when he's running, he says, just get rid of FISA, right? Now he's telling everybody, you got to push that through, got to have that, right? So it's all paving the way for a police state, paving the way for a technocracy, paving the way for a fourth turning to take everything down.
Well, unfortunately, I agree with you. And the surveillance state will be part of the climate lockdowns. That'll be the next move. If you see you got to work from home and stay home and stay safe. We're burning way too much energy with a war on. We got the war on. Remember the war effort? It won't exactly work that way. This country's not like it was in World War II. There's not a cohesion, and we've been lied to so much and abused. I don't think people would just in lockstep go for it. A big chunk will. We see people still wear masks. So there is that section of the population that'll go for it. But no, I unfortunately agree with you, and I think the surveillance state will be set up. And the only intelligence in Washington, D.C. is artificial at this point. We clearly could see that by who rules over it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, tell us what's going on at Wise Wolf. Anything? I know that you've been tap dancing through this hyperinflation of gold. Things have leveled off a little while now for a while, but I think this is a calm before the storm. I think we are right in the eye of the hurricane that's coming, and the back end, as they say, of the hurricanes. When you're in the eye of the storm, I grew up in Florida. When you're in the eye of the storm, be careful, because when those back winds come, they're even worse than the ones that hit you coming in. Yeah. So I think that's where we are right now.
I'm really thankful that it feels like it calmed down enough, and there is some stability in the pricing structure. But when it was way hot, at silver 115. an ounce plus when it was hitting that, and the amount of people trying to sell, it's calmed down some. So thank goodness, and just trying to find a way to get liquid. So I'm glad I don't have to do that right this minute. Some of the refiners are back online. It takes about 4 weeks or so to get paid on silver if you have it melt like a sterling and stuff like that. But we have calmed down somewhat, and so I'm looking for some ways to get more diversified products into Wolfpack. That's been my mission right now. We're able to source a lot of the fractional silver. I found some sources for that, and just finding new supply, David, just keeping that open. Even the supply issues with as much as was sold, it really put a strain on the way the whole system works from wholesaler to dealer. So I'm very fortunate. We have a good team, so we're able to get through those those whipsaw back and forth moments, which you got to.
Yeah, it was a real test.
Survive it.
It was a real test. You did a great job keeping your head above water. Well, it's as I said, none of the fundamentals have changed. All the fundamental things that were driving gold and silver are getting even worse. The threats on the petrodollar, the threats on the fiat currency, as well as the debt, all this stuff is escalating, and inflation. All that stuff is escalating very fast. This is just a temporary market reaction to the types of things that Trump has said. And of course, we saw how he moved the market by saying, well, I'm going to attack all of Iran's infrastructure. And then he leaves that out there for a day or so, and then comes back and says, well, never mind, I'm going to give him another 5 days. And you see how the market just hangs on every word that he has to say. It's amazing to me, the power that he has to manipulate the markets. But it's not real. And we know what's real. And so we know where this is headed in the long term. As Joel Slinty says, I don't make predictions, I look at trends. And I think that's what we need to look at with all of this stuff at this point in time. And the trends are still there, have not been changed whatsoever.
Yeah, just look at the long term.
That's right.
Ask yourself, do you think that the dollar will be stronger in 5 years than it is today? Do you think that the economy will be more stable, that there will be an economic renaissance, or are you betting on some sort of reallocation into commodities and rare assets? I'm more leaning towards rare assets and commodities and things that have been money since the dawn of history. So I'm not betting for this market. I'm betting against it.
That's right. That's right. I agree. That's the way I see it as well. Well, Tony, it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your support of the show. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at davidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. davidknightshow.com.